Saturday Pharmacist with your host, Hunnter Maxwell, and today we have Dr. Thomas Franko. How you doing today, Dr. Franko?
I'm doing good. It's good to be back with the program.
Yes, with COVID, we have rooted to this podcast format. We are kicked out of the WCLH studio for the temporary time being. Hopefully in the fall we can get back there. But yeah, I think this will be a good, exciting thing for us to start this podcast.
It's good. It really is. It's good to be back spreading the Generation RX message and taking what we did with the radio show and now moving it to podcasting. And like you said, hopefully come the fall semester, we'll be back and hey, maybe we'll be doing both.
Yes, I'm very optimistic about it. So, let's start with some introduction to ourselves because, this is a new format for us and hopefully some new outreach. So I'll start by introducing myself. Just want to welcome everybody to Saturday Pharmacist. We're going to be titling the podcast as that, as this will be posted every other Saturday. My name is Hunnter Maxwell. I am a P3 student here at Wilkes University, Nesbitt School of Pharmacy. And I am the chair of the Generation RX committee, part of the APhA. So also, I actually just I don't know if I told you this, Dr. Franko, but I actually just got accepted into the Navy health program to be an officer, kind of like our P3 Cody Morecum and Justine Seymour. So that's coming up for me next year.
Oh man, you did not tell me that. A, congratulations, and B, coming from a proud Navy family, extra congratulations for joining the Navy. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I just actually got the letter yesterday in the mail. I'll be swearing in next Friday, so I'm very, very excited. And my family is also part of the military, so it's much appreciated. And thank you for your congratulations. So yeah, on top of that, my favorite hobbies, I guess, I know I was a former soccer player here at Wilkes University, captain, and my future personal goals is really to just see where the Navy takes me. I'm very, very excited, like I said, about that. And I'm just looking forward to starting my rotations next year as well. Come June 1st, we'll be going to, some Geisinger locations locally in the Wilkes-Barre area. And then I'm actually looking forward to Block 7. I'll be going with our very own Dr. McManus to Alaska. So exciting 2021 and 2022, I guess, coming up for me.
That's great that you're going to head up to Alaska. And I hear a lot of good things about that rotation. You weren't cool enough to come on my rotation, but I mean, hey, nobody's perfect.
It was preference. It was preference second. I'll tell you that.
Hey. I mean, I saw it. I wept. It happens. No, it's good that you're going to be getting out and seeing all that and getting out with the Navy and serving your country. That is great. You're going to get to the Navy, see the world. And yeah, like I said, my grandfather was Navy at Normandy on D-Day, so coming with that rich tradition, it's always good to see people. Nothing against Cody or Justine for going Air Force, but it's good to see someone picking Navy. So go Navy.
Yes. So enough of me. So why don't you tell the fans and our subscribers about yourself?
Well, I've been at Wilkes now for almost 8 years. And I've been involved with the Generation RX program, helping to spread awareness about substance use disorder for the majority of that time. So I practice primarily with pain management and substance use disorders. I think it's absolutely fascinating, especially when you study the brain around people with substance use disorder, how it is functionally different from people who don't have a substance use disorder. So a lot of my time is spent trying to dispel stigma that goes with it. I'm really involved with locally with our Luzerne County Stop Coalition, which is involving our district attorney, our drug and alcohol treatment programs, social workers, certified recovery specialists, physicians. It's a great group. Statewide, highly involved in the Pennsylvania Pharmacy Association, where I'm actually the president-elect. So my president year will start July 1. Looking forward to that, especially as we're involved so heavily with the COVID vaccine rollout right now. And then nationally involved with the American Pharmacist Association as the coordinator-elect for their pain, palliative care, and addiction special interest groups. We're doing a lot of work nationally with getting pharmacists involved with harm reduction programs, as well as trying to expand access to treatment for substance use disorder through pharmacists. And I actually just found out a few days ago, this is my news to you, just like you get news from me,
Right.
that I'm going to be hosting a discussion or open forum at the annual APhA meeting coming up next weekend with the Deputy Director of NIDA, which is the National Institute of Drug Abuse. So I guess it's me and him, and that's it. So terrifying and awesome at the same time. So it's good to have that involvement and to get the Wilkes name out there, why we do it. We have a great reputation for what it is that we do with our Generation RX program. And we're happy to continue going forward despite COVID because, screw COVID. We're gonna beat this thing. And this is our way of keeping that message going.
Wow. Big news from both of us, and that's truly amazing. And I wish you the best of luck next weekend. But yeah, I agree with you. We've just moving along with COVID, and I think it's slowing down a little bit, hopefully, fingers crossed. So hopefully, as much as I love talking to you on this podcast, hopefully we get back to face, like we said on that radio station. So I guess we'll start with why did we initially start this podcast, which we kind of touched upon already. So I have written, this podcast is meant to be a free voice channel for us to vocalize facts and, our professional opinions on public health issues that we are very passionate about. And like you said, the reducing stigma, substance abuse, you're very passionate about. And that's what Generation RX is all about. So we're definitely going to touch upon that. And, the radio show we keep mentioning, and I would be wrong to not mention, our own Dylan Fox and Harrison Farrow, as they were the previous chairs of this Generation RX. So big shout out to them. None of this would probably be even a thought, honestly, if it wasn't for them. And I know that you were very close with both of them. I don't know if you have anything to say about them before we move forward, but
yeah, there's probably not enough time to talk about all the work that those two individuals have done for the Gen RX program. Dylan has since Ford graduated, and he's doing work with CBS up in Rhode Island, hoping to change the world up there. And Harrison is poised to graduate this year in May. So our hats off to him for continuing the good work of what Dylan started with the radio show. And you're spot on. Without those two, we would not be doing this today.
Yeah, and huge thank you to them. They have laid the groundwork for this, and they have just gone above and beyond. And I could hopefully fill their shoes with this podcast after episode by episode, but time will tell. So a little bit about Generation RX we could talk about. This is from the Generation RX website. I have it quoted here. The mission of Generation RX is to educate people of all ages about the potential dangers of misusing prescription medications. In doing so, we strive to enhance medication safety among our youth, college students, other adults in our communities, and older adults. So what is your take on Generation RX, Dr. Franko?
I really think that the notion of it is it's changing the culture. That's really what it comes down to. The culture around substance use disorder has been it's set in its ways for almost 100 years. When we look back at the history as to when substance use disorder was classified as a problem for the criminal justice system rather than a problem for the healthcare system. Things have thankfully over the last few years started to change. And the Generation RX initiative is around that by trying to galvanize, especially young people who are in health professions, mainly pharmacy, to get out there and use their position to present facts, to present evidence, to help change the culture so that we can get people who have a chronic medical condition the help that they need to improve their quality of life. That's the name of the game. So anything we could do to try to help move the needle culturally. Everybody today wants to be an influencer and a change agent. Well, this is how we're going to do it. So let's get it done.
Yeah, I agree. That term influencer has been tossed around so many different directions. I'm 22. I see people on, this TikTok app, and they're saying they're influencers and they're like branding themselves and they're being like comedians or just talking about nonsense, when I feel like influencer, you and I are influencing right now in the community with this podcast, and, Dylan Harrison with the radio show, spreading the good word about Generation RX and, reducing the stigma and, getting the word out there about important issues, which I think definitely goes a little under the radar especially in this topic, especially in this area as well.
Yeah, there's so much myth, urban legend uh, out there about substance use disorder, and it takes a long time to try to break that. And a lot of it's based on personal experiences. I'm not trying to say that having a substance use disorder, or even at times more impressively caring for someone with a substance use disorder, is easy. It's not. It is most definitely a challenge, and it's a challenge that is taken one day at a time. It's a situation where every day of mental clarity and every day of being positive is something that should be met as a blessing. And as we try to look at that, we also realize that several other medical conditions, if they were viewed that way, would result in dramatic improvement in quality of care and in quality of life.
Right. Well said. Well said. Um, and to go back a little bit on my involvement on Generation RX, it all started when I was a P1, and they give you the pamphlet with a million different clubs, and you don't know which one to join, and you're just trying to join whatever one's the cheapest because you're on a college budget, or you're trying to join the ones with all your friends. And Dylan Fox, like we mentioned, he was the one who reached out to me through another mutual friend, and he's like, "You need to be in Generation RX." And at the time, I didn't really know much about it, and I was like, "Nah, like I don't think it's for me. I'm just gonna lay low. I'm busy with soccer, and I want to do well in school." But you know, came the time to apply, and he really pushed me and educated me on the topic as we discussed. And I just want to thank him for pushing me to apply, because without him, like you said, I don't think this podcast would be here. I definitely wouldn't be here talking to you about this. So special thank you to him. Um, and also with you, I remember last year, COVID kind of hit up us. So we were like, well, not much to do. And we did not get to do a lot of our in-person events with the community outreach, which is very disappointing because a lot of our stuff is hands-on and in person. So how do you think that affect us from previous years till COVID?
Obviously the impact of COVID on not just us, but on the world has been devastating. Uh, Going to remote learning, as difficult as it was, and pulling our in-person events, as difficult as that was ultimately the right thing to do because it kept people safe, it saved lives, and we needed to do what we needed to do. The best thing we could do though was look forward. Looking in the rearview mirror could really just make us either sad, angry, or both. So as we look forward, we realize that there are. I know this doesn't do much for you since you're on rotation in like a few months. But the legacy of every chair lives on. Hope this is something that hopefully your successors will keep up with. But we do have all of our events primed, ready to go. Looking into, knock on wood, the fall, but hopefully even still the spring. So we're just going to keep looking forward, and we realize that our partnerships with our community are still strong. We've still kept in touch, so they're going to be there to back us up. The medical society, the city, the fire department, they will be there to back us when the time comes that we can get back to doing things for real.
Yeah, and like I said, this is a great area for us because, as COVID has affected the world, but us individually, I know a lot of our things are in person, which, especially in this topic, like a lot of these people need in-person help, and it's kind of hard to do that in a global pandemic. So I'm looking forward to whoever is my successor to help them and guide them in the right way, because right now we're kind of struggling without a co-chair, so they're not familiar with the situations that we're put in right now. But hopefully when the time comes, I'll be a good mentor for them, and you'll be even better for them to reach out to.
Yeah, I'll be here. That's I know. And
You're not
they're
going
gonna have
anywhere.
their work. They're gonna have their work cut out for them. We're especially when you look at the data around substance use as it relates to the timing around COVID, exponential growth. I think nationally there was somewhere in the area of 81,000 people in 2020 that died from a drug-related overdose. It's something that's definitely up there in response to COVID and other mental health concerns. So we're gonna have our work cut out for us when we come back. But hopefully, a podcast such as this will expand our reach, and we'll be able to get more people to hear the evidence and hear the facts around this.
Right, which is kind of leads me into my next point here about the goals of the podcast. Um, you said you and I both want to reach a bigger audience. With the radio show, we were kind of localized to wherever the radio signal reached, but we're going to be posting this on YouTube. We're going to be posting this on Spotify. We're going to be posting this on Apple Podcast. Wherever we could post, we're going to post this, and we're going to get the numbers out, which is super exciting because you and I are in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and for people across the country to hear this, and who knows, maybe people will share it across the globe. That'd be kind of cool. What's your take on that?
If we come to find that there are folks across the globe sharing this, I mean, wow, we should play the lottery. That'd be fantastic. Anything we can do to try to spread information. A lot of what we did with the radio show, you're right, does reach locally to Northeast Pennsylvania. Now we have opportunities to expand that. And it's my hope that other people not just share this information, but they use it to start their own locally grassroots communications program to their area, since the needs of their area may be different than the needs of our area. So if we can act as a playbook for other people, that's awesome.
Right. And I know you have a lot of connections through all the clubs you're involved in. And I know, Dylan and Harrison will definitely share this with their friends who, Dylan's at CVS, Harrison's still in his rotations. But, the more people that hear the good word about our podcast that we're starting, I feel like we're going to have a good run for at least a little bit. I think once people share it, and we're going to be talking about public health topics that, go unnoticed in everyday life. Example, substance abuse, like you keep mentioning, vaccine misinformation. We're going to touch on a lot of topics that, are behind the scenes that a lot of people sometimes don't really hear about, that we want to bring light to.
Yeah, getting this information out is going to be important. There's a lot of, especially now, there's a lot of misinformation out there. But hopefully, people will listen in, tune in. We're only going to present objective, evidence-based information. None of this is going to be cherry-picked. None of this is going to be our spin on it. It's going to be exactly what the evidence says. And that way, hopefully, people will have a better appreciation for the severity of several of these topics of which we're going to speak.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of wraps up our goals and enough about us. And, I'm sure people are sick of hearing us talk about ourselves. So I want to get into our first official topic of the Saturday Pharmacist podcast. And it's something that I know that you were pretty involved in, actually. So that's kind of exciting. But a kind of a also controversial topic known as the X waiver. So I don't know if you want to give a little background on it, and then I could provide some information about it that I wrote down, and then we could give your, overall feedback on it.
Yeah, I guess just in a, rather overview type thing, the X waiver stemmed from the Drug Abuse Treatment Act, which was a federal law signed in 2000. Shorthand, we call it the Data Waiver or the Data Act. If you get a data waiver, which is you get X, it permits physicians and recently nurse practitioners and physician assistants to prescribe a medication called buprenorphine for purposes of opioid use disorder. And it has been highly controversial for the last now 21 years. There's some recent potential movement on it and some current stuff going through DC on it. And that's kind of where we stand now.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I read about it. So from what I found, it says the new policy, this X waiver, will allow any physician with a Drug Enforcement Administration prescriber license to treat up to 30 in-state patients. The hospital-based physicians will be exempted from the 30 patient cap, and doctors can still treat up to 275 patients with the drug if they undergo the training and receive a separate waiver. So I guess what I'm getting from it is, yes, it allows these doctors to prescribe without going through all these qualifications. But is that good or is that a bad thing?
It depends on who you ask. Some people say it's a good thing because it will help regulate the amounts of prescribing that's happening so that we don't overprescribe, which is how the pendulum swung in the 90s and early 2000s with opioids. The overprescribing of opioids was not the end-all be-all cause of the opioid crisis. It certainly played a part of it, but it wasn't the aha moment. On the flip side, the counter argument is that it is a barrier to care. It's the only condition and medication that requires additional training and certification in order to use. There's no other medication on the market that physicians cannot write for. So it's perceived as a way to almost discourage providers from getting it because it's training and an administrative hassle, and it discourages patients because not everybody has this thing. In fact, only about 7% of prescribers even have it. When you look across the board nationally, there's a 1 in 5 treatment gap for buprenorphine, which means only about 20% of people who need help get it. So to put it in perspective, could you imagine if only 20% of people who had a heart attack got to go see a cardiologist? Like,
Right.
people's minds would explode.
Would not be good.
So obviously you could tell where I kind of stand on this, but from just the pros and cons, that's the stuff that the stuff that you most commonly hear about.
Yeah, so what I found, this bill was introduced in 2019. Representative from New York, he wanted to eliminate the X waiver. He said, quote, it was an urgent need, end quote, due to COVID-19. And this is relating to the number that you threw out earlier. More than 83,000 drug overdose deaths occurred in the US in the 12 months ending in June 2020. That's the most recent update I have. That is the highest number of overdose deaths ever recorded in a 12-month period. And that's an increase of over 21% compared to the previous year, according to data from the CDC. And then he goes on to say, nullifying this waiver requirement, making it easier for physicians to prescribe buprenorphine, even to a limited number of patients, will save countless lives. And that's from the guy from New York.
Yeah, there's plenty of information out there currently, and there is a bill. I believe it was put up in definitely the Senate. I think the House has a similar bill in Washington called the MAT Act, M-A-T Act, which is looking to potentially abolish the need for the waiver, but to do so in a structured, easy as far as legislation goes, manner, such that it doesn't just open the floodgates, but it does so in a structured way such that the system doesn't get overflowed with people, that it's done in a manner that it is safe, that it is equitable, that it ensures people retain access to care without misusing the system.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's all the information that I, collected on the X waiver. It's a very interesting topic, very controversial, as you said. But we're providing, fact-based data, and your comments on it, we appreciate. I think people should just take it for what it is. Listen to what we said and listen to what you have to say about it. But it's definitely something that people should be aware about.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk for a long time, more than the duration of a small portion of a show about the X waiver, especially with some people out there may have heard back in early January or late December that there was talk of outright abolishing it, and then in late January into February, the Department of Health and Human Services changed course and said, no, we're not going to abolish it. And in a way, the manner in which the potential move to abolish it was done was a bit while done with good intention, was a bit short-sighted, as it didn't answer or opened up holes that were not filled that could have led to a lot of problems. So hopefully there's a more structured approach. MADAC can do it. Hopefully there's a more structured approach coming, but let's be real, we need to get rid of that thing. It's keeping people who need treatment away from treatment, and that's just wrong.
Yeah, that is wrong. People who need the treatment, they deserve the treatment. But yeah, I think that's all the main information we have to share with our listeners. Is there anything else you wanted to add to our inaugural podcast?
I think it's just to keep listening in. We're going to have new topics each week. Some topics may expand more than one week. We've done that with the radio show, so we're more than likely going to be doing it here. Sure, we'll be back revisiting the X waiver again in the future as more information comes out. But I guess just tune in next time. Click like and download whatever it is we got to do to beat that algorithm that's out there too.
Yeah, we got to, people say smash that subscribe button. So smash that subscribe button. I believe this is the APhA YouTube channel for Wilkes University. So we'll be posting it on there. And yeah, we're going to try and get out to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Wherever you can post a podcast, we're going to post it. Once I figure out the technical issues with it, I will do that. But thank you so much, Dr. Franco. You're going to be a reoccurring guest on the podcast until we get more established and more people start listening to us. So we greatly appreciate it if you could share the podcast, like Dr. Franco said, and smash that subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your friends' family about the podcast. It's a quick 30 to 45-minute show we're going to be aiming for. So not a long listen. You could speed up our voices if we're talking too slow. We'd love to hear comments from you on how good or how bad you thought we did. So you could comment on the YouTube comment section there, or you can direct any love-hate relationship with the podcast to my email, school email. I won't share that. Everyone who has it with Wilkes can find it on the Wilkes Drive. And thank you again to Dr. Franco for your professional input and taking time out of your schedule. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our couple subscribers that we already have for tuning in. Our next show is scheduled for March 13th, right, Dr. Franco? We're going to be doing it every other.
I believe we're doing that, which works out nicely. That's right during the middle of the APhA annual meeting, so we might be able to give our listeners some super up-to-date information.
Right, current news. So stay tuned to that show. That will be March 13th, so mark it on your calendar. But yeah, that's all I have. Dr. Franco, thank you. And for the Generation RX Student-Driven Podcast inaugural episode, I'm Hunnter Maxwell. Keep it real and stay safe. See everybody in 2 weeks.